and welcome to Headbangers. As ever, I am Gordon, and well, obviously, as ever, I did change my name, and I'm joined by Matty and Neil. How are you guys doing?
All right, how are you?
Hi, I'm all right. Aye, I was just saying before we hit record there that I'm going on holiday next week, and it's quite good because in a way because it's my whole family. So my dad's paid for it all because he retired, so he got his like retirement payout, and he's taking like my family, my sister's family, and obviously my mum and dad.
Right.
And so it's like fucking brilliant, like free holiday, great. Heading to
Thanks for
Salou.
taking me, Matty.
Aye, I'll send you our tickets now, right?
It's in the post.
Aye, aye. And it's all that side it's good. So I've not had the stress of like booking it and organising all the transfer and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I've been like mega stressed about getting stuff done before I go because I've just got shitloads of stuff that I need to finish off. And I'm like, I'm only away for a week, but I'm like, if I leave that and then get it done before I go, then a week passes and then I'm gonna have to pick up when I come back. And I was like, and it's just got hanging over me when I'm on holiday. I just want to sit next to the pool and sip on the margaritas, but it's just gonna annoy the fuck out of me. So I've been really stressed about that for the last couple of days. And then obviously I got the cases in the loft, and I'm like, how many cases we need? There's 5 of us going, but we're only going for a week. We only need like 2 or 3 cases. But then Mrs. is like, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that. I was like, yeah, fuck, I need any of that. Whittle doing your stuff. She's like, I will do my stuff, and she's not done it. And then we have to get the kids' stuff sorted, and then like the parking and at the airport and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, is it even fucking worth going on holiday, even though it's free? It's like the stress here is just absolutely doing my nutting. And then I've got like last year I went to Florida, and that was like one of the most stressful experiences ever. When we got there, it was brilliant. Like, and it was worth the stress because it's one of the holidays you've got to plan what you're doing, right? Because there's so much to do, and if you didn't plan it, there's no one of the things you can just like get up in the morning and fucking saunter about, and you end up falling into Disneyland, Disney World. It doesn't happen like that. But this, like the planning before it was unbelievable. Like it was just months of constant planning, conversations, and even booking restaurants and everything before you went and all the rest of it. It's not on that level, but it's I'm just feeling mega stressed about it. I don't know if you guys get like somewhere like this time of year, everybody's going on holiday and probably resonates with quite a lot of people. But like I did like. Do we put too much pressure on ourselves, like for these kind of things?
No, I think we do. Like I've been lucky enough as well to be go to Florida before, and that was like such a stress. Like probably gave me some sort of like mental breakdown. I loved the holiday, but like there's that thing because at that point, and it was everything like getting up at like because of the time difference at 5 in the morning. So at that point, we were speaking about recently gone. Remember the whole Disney Fast Pass things? You could book it like 90 days in advance, was it, or 30 days in advance, depending on what package. But you could book meals. I think it was maybe like 180 days in advance. I can't tell you what happened tomorrow. I can't tell you what will happen. Right? You know what I mean? So you say like in half a year, I'm going to be eating like chicken wings and like Mickey Mouse's house or whatever. It's like what the fuck? And it was on it like it was, and I would be getting up like setting my alarm 5 in the morning just so I could get, because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. My mum unfortunately passed away and left us money to go for it, and I thought, like what you're saying, can't take it for granted. We'll probably never, like, we might never be there, or it might just, it's the only time we're going to be there, so let's make the most of it. But it was like an absolute, when I got there, it was brilliant. And it was like, everything worked out as well as it did, but I needed a holiday before I went on holiday for booking a holiday, and I probably needed a holiday when I came back just to relax after all. I have a good time.
Are the things you're stressing about, Gordon, are they like external stresses, i.e. ones that are placed upon you by other people, or are they internal ones, as in ones that you are putting on yourself because you feel you need to do them?
Probably 60-40 to the latter, in terms of like I'm putting more on myself than other people, but there is external stresses as well. I think it's just a mixture. Like, there's just stuff that I need to get like signed off for what we've had done in the house and trying to get ahead of people and stuff like that, and we're coming up against deadlines and things. And I'm quite relaxed about work for a change, which is quite good. So I'm not too stressed about that. But it's just, it probably is more than 60-40. It's like the internal stuff. Like I'm just probably creating mountains out of molehills. But it's one of the things you want to like. I always feel this sense of responsibility that I probably and I do have responsibility, right? I've got a family, and like I want to make sure they have a good time. But I think I want to make sure they have a good time too much, which sounds bad, but like I put the pressure on myself to go, this has to be fucking perfect, because if somebody doesn't enjoy their cell and nobody enjoys their cell, then that's my fault, because I don't know. I have that thing in my head where I just have to do that. And I think my missus does exactly the same, which is ironic because we're both doing it, and and we're both sharing it, but we both feel like it's on each of us individually 100%. So it probably is that way. But I kind of like, I don't know if there's something we can do more generally to like, because you pay a lot of money. Like in this instance, I've not paid any money because my dad's doing it. But regardless, somebody's paid money, and holidays are on the cheap, especially now. And you want to go and make the best of it. And like if you're working all year round, which basically all of us are, that's your break that you need, right? Like lucky to go once a year. Some people go more than once a year. Some people don't go at all. But if you are lucky enough to go on a holiday, you want to really enjoy it. And I wonder if there's anything that as in general that we can do to like make it less stressful so that you can enjoy it and not put the pressure on yourself.
Do you think it's like worthwhile, depending on the holiday situation and depending on the setup as well, but like trying to see if you can like delegate some of the stuff to other people? Because I know like I would be like organising loads of stuff, and I've done it with like football trips with my pals and stuff like that, and holidays, like family holidays, like organised, like everything. And sometimes it's maybe worth saying like, by the way, this is quite stressful. Who fancies taking a wee shot? Doing that. And do you know, and I know that this sounds like probably stupid, but I'll give you another sort of example of that. It's even organising like nights out with your pals. Do you know what I mean? It can be so stressful, and it's like nowadays you've got to book tables and stuff like that, and you try to get a place for the football, and then somebody will be like, I'm not a fan of the beer that they do. Someone else will be like, I don't like the food that that pub does, and it's like, fucking hell. And then they just like rock up, and then they're sitting there, and you're like, this has been booking a pub to get a group of us together is such a stress. And it is that thing where it's like going someone else do it. But I suppose if no one else did it, it would never happen. So it's like that. Who else is going to, you know what I mean? Sharing the responsibility with people who are responsible enough to accept that responsibility.
There's a lowering of expectations as well would help. Like that idea of like the perfect holiday and everything. And I think with other people, you have to think, like, see, like, the things that folk enjoy. It's not always like I don't want to say like forced fun, but like the organised stuff. Like if you think back to when you were a kid, a lot of the best times you had were like impromptu. They weren't planned. They were spontaneous. They were like a day where nothing was meant to be happening, something funny happened, or whatever. And sometimes actually the things that sounded good, like, oh, we're going to do this, when you actually go to them because there's big queues, or because something doesn't work, or because it's built up that much that you think it's going to be fucking amazing, and it never ever delivers at that level. Like it's very, very difficult to get it to that point. But I think if you go and remember, like kids, obviously it depends on the age of the kids and stuff like that. Kids can enjoy themselves with a ball, a bat and a ball, or a bit of paper and a pen. Do you know what I mean? Cardboard box. Like, it is that bit about remembering. It doesn't have to be like sparkling fireworks and marching bands and all the rest of it to be amazing for the kids. Kids are happy if they've got your time, if they've got your attention. And sometimes you think actually like you didn't need to fill every minute of the day for them, which is the other thing. And a lot of the time their enjoyment's their responsibility as well. No on you and other people's enjoyments on them, like with the adults. So if you can bring your expectations down and sort of remember what it's like when you enjoy yourself, it can take a bit of the stress away. I don't know what you do about the stuff that you you need to finish before you go. Like delegation's probably the as good as advice as you get there. But that is what it is, really, isn't it?
Or just accepting the fact that the world's not going to end if you didn't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what I'm trying to do. It's easier said than done. Like, I can easily say it here, but I'm still stressing about it. Like, the day my chest was like fucking really sore, like proper sore, and it was stress. Like, I get really, I know, like my body tells me when I'm stressed a lot more now than it used to, and I get like a proper tight, like painful chest, and even like to touch it, it's quite sore, and it's like. I'm rationalising these things and I'm saying to myself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm just going to be de-stressed. You know what I mean? Like the thing is still there. So it's just managing it the best you can, I suppose. Yeah. And I suppose, like you're saying, Matty, like spot on. If you think that your holiday's going to be shit, then it'll probably be quite good. Your expectations are really low. I'm just going to think I'm going to have a really shit holiday, and then when I go, it'll be great, and it'll seem much better because of my expectations were mega low. But yeah, holiday season is upon everyone. So, well, not everyone, but the majority of people are lucky enough to be. So, try and enjoy it. Don't be like a stress ball like me. I was just going to move on to we put a request for our listeners to put in some comments or notes or feelings that they wanted us to discuss on the podcast. So we're not going to be like, as we've mentioned many times before on this, we're no mental health experts in any way, shape or form. So we're not going to give everybody a golden. I hate that phrase, golden bullet. Is it golden bullet?
Aye. Silver bullet.
Is it silver bullet?
Silver. It's something called a werewolf, isn't it?
Aye, but like folk use it as like the solution. I hate it. It's actually horrible. I couldn't think of anything else. But we're not going to give you like the magic solution. We might, I don't know, but we're not going to pretend like we'll definitely.
I'll do it.
Matty is held wholly responsible for any responses to this. But yeah, as we've had a pretty decent response and some really, really good and thought-provoking stuff to talk about. So I'll just go through some of them. I think everybody was. You know what? I'm not going to mention the names. I think everybody was comfortable putting their names in, but we'll just go through the comments because it doesn't really matter.
Brian Jones definitely wanted to be anonymous, so didn't read his one out.
All right, cool. Right. Sorry, Brian. It's Brian Jones.
That's made up a name.
I was getting excited the wife of Rolling Stones had come back alive, and he was like,
Mick Jagger definitely wants to remain.
That's good. That would be Brian Jones is alive and kicking in there.
Boris Johnson just sent one in, but he can fuck it off. So we've actually there's two here that are on the same subject. So, and that subject is around grief. So I'll just read them both out, and then we can discuss, and Matt can give his silver or golden bronze bullet. So is pre-grief a thing? I find myself falling into mental pits now and again when I think about those close to me passing away. Some of them I'm genuinely not ready for, my dad being the main one. It's mental when I type out, but it just hits me now and again. And then from someone else, something I want to hear you guys talk about is how you cope with grief, as it's something that I don't think is spoken about enough, and I think there should be some kind of budget to get people help. I'm assuming from the governing bodies. So yeah, a theme around grief there, and the pre-grief thing is definitely an interesting topic. So discuss.
It's a brilliant question, isn't it?
Yes.
And pre-grief. It's no silver bullet, right? Just to be clear, like I have the answers. Right, my own experience, I remember growing up being really aware of that feeling, and I would get myself upset to the point like I cry and thinking about not having my mum and dad there, or like anything happening to people round about me that I cared about. I obviously I know I will be upset when that happens, but I'm a lot more matter of fact about it now. Like, I don't know. I try to think about the point where it changed for me, and I'm going to do something I don't do very often. I give my wee sister some credit here. So my wee sister's a doctor of philosophy, and she did her thesis on death. And I read a bit of the paper, not all of it. It's way above my head.
Got to say she's got the brains in the family then.
Yes, the brains, the looks, the humour, everything. Right. So her and my big sister both got it all. I kind of got what was left.
You got the podcast.
Got the podcast. Aye, lucky me.
Aye.
And it was the thing about death being like worse for the people who remain. Right. So the people who go, like, it's just it's done. Like, there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no missing people, and all the rest of it. In that sense, like, it's not a bad thing. It's just like a natural progression. You can't avoid it. It's going to come to us all. It doesn't make it any easier, but I think when you know, like, also like knowing that the person that you've lost isn't hurting, and they're not sad, and they're not in a bad place or anything like that. It's just, just an end to their life. And then knowing that by my age, like, we've experienced death, the people that I love, like, it's horrible, but you get through it.
Yeah.
And it's that wee bit about, like, you recognise how resilient you are. You recognise it's not too bad for the other person. Like, as cold-hearted as that sounds, it's just like that's an end for them. It's natural. Then I found it easier to deal with, like, just to think, well, it's just something that happens. You can't escape it. You have to deal with it. And 9 times out of 10, and obviously there are exceptions, but you get through it. As tough as it is, you get through it. You'll always remember the person. You'll always, like, they'll always be part of you, and those sort of things that keep it close to you will remain whether they're there or not. But you'll get through it, and that's the bit that you think you can't do, you can. And when you get that, that was kind of how I got past, like, getting really, really upset just at the thought of it. And now I can I know it's going to happen, and I know I'll be all right.
Well, I'm sure. I think it was it the Chimp Paradox, the book in which they talk about, like, different stuff, and it was like a big thing, like, what people need to accept is that life isn't fair. And it sounds really harsh, like, do you know what I mean? But, like, well, as soon as you sort of, like, appreciate that, then you'll, like, understand a lot more. Do you know what I mean? You'll be, and it's like, grief is a horrible thing. And it isn't like we could spend, like, podcasts talking about, like, examples of, like, ourselves or people we know where it's, like, demonstrated that life isn't fair. But as soon as you sort of know that, you're maybe, like, more prepared for it not being fair. And it's also, like, living in the moment. And it sounds like so cheesy American, but it's just, like, making the most of what it is. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got, like, an afternoon, like, going, like, and you can spend time with your dad, or you go to the football with him, or you watch telly or that with him, so be it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like making the most of the time that you've got, and being thankful for the time that you've had as well. And then, try to do all you can to make sure that you enjoy the time potentially you've got, because we never know what's in the corner. Do you know what I mean?
No, it is like, I think the main part of it is acceptance, right? To deal with it best, because it is inevitable, right? It is the most inevitable thing in human history. Like, it's going to happen to every single person.
Death, taxes, and penalty rangers, I think, is the 3 most inevitable things.
Yeah. But no, I think, just trying to accept it to a certain degree. But I think you'll never, like, it's. I think we did an episode a while back where we talked quite extensively about grief, and it's that the definition about it being the absinthe, the drink, the absence of something in your life, and that's what it is. It's like lost, isn't it? Like, you've lost something that was a big part of you and part of your everyday life, and that you held a feeling for, and that thing is now gone, and you can't converse with it anymore. You can't do the things you used to do, and it's never coming back. But I think if accepting it, I think, is the closest we're going to get, but we're never going to feel I think it's just part of life is to grieve and to die and then to grieve. But one thing, like, do you ever, so that pre-grief thing,
Mhm.
do you ever have it for yourself? Because I do. Like, my biggest fear is my family members dying before I die, which, yeah, and me dying. Like, I've got a lot more comfortable with death as of, like, the mindfulness stuff that I do helps with that, like, hugely. There's a lot of stuff in that really, really helps. But I often, like, been thinking about it quite recently, actually, around, like, I'm not really getting into religion or anything like that, but obviously, all through history, people have thought that there's something after death in some way, right? I've just came to the conclusion that there's nothing. It's just nothingness, right? You just fucking nothing. You didn't think, you didn't do anything. You're just gone. Everyone's off, and that's really fucking scary. Like, really scary. And I've actually been, like, I suppose in some way, sort of grieving the loss of myself. I don't know if you ever think about it that way.
Nah, there's been times when I felt like really low, like mentally, and that, and you think to yourself, you'd rather not be here, but then there's situations for which, like, and I've struggled with, like, health anxiety before, but I'd be like, I'm dying. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, this is me. I'm away to the hospital, and then the hospital, like, you're all right. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, you're not dying of that. And it's just sort of like rationalise it, but nah, totally. There has been times where it's like properly hit when you're thinking, like, this will be it. There's nothing else after it, and then what about, like, my family and stuff like that, my pals? How's this podcast going to cope without me? But do you know what I mean? Or but it's weird that, like, you just think it, like, sometimes it does, like, but you never know what is round the corner, and it is, again, people just here one second, go on the next, and it's just like making the most of it, and then accepting at one point it will happen, and just making sure that we're all right before it does, and doing everything we can to make sure that we're, because it'll be stuff that we do, you have people like drinking or living lifestyles for which will attract the risk of, like, something happening or, endangering it, or so it's just, I suppose, like, living the best life that you can.
Matt, what do you think about the thing about help? So, like, government stuff giving budgets for grief.
All for that. Without getting too political, and I mean, I'm quite a socialist by nature, right? And I believe that as much help that as can be given to people, it should be given. And I think you're seeing more now. There's more support for mental health in general, and grief is something that impacts people's mental health. It's an emotion. It's a ridiculously tough thing to go through when you lose somebody close to you, right? And the grieving process. And if you think about, like, most employers have wholly inadequate compassionate leave policies. You maybe look at, like, they'll have a week, or they'll maybe pay you for a week. Maybe they might give you some more time off than that if you need it. But actually, sometimes it can take people months, years to get it properly go over it. Right? And I'm not when they suggest that it's that people need to take that long off their work. Some people might, but that bit about, like, how do you support people if they can't quite go back to work? Should employers be doing more? Absolutely, I think they should. I think there should be more steps, more programs in place to kind of support people in grief. It should almost be a given that when you suffer something traumatic, that there is the support in place. Something kicks in, you've got a good leave policy, that kind of thing. Somebody to speak to. And I know, like, a lot of workplaces have, like, mental health first aiders and things like that now, which is great. But it needs to be more than a tick box exercise. I think for how the government does that, there must be a way to do it, whether that's individual funding or whether they support programs for, like, in the community for folk to go to, that kind of thing. I think it should be, I would say that would be a good thing. I don't see any negatives in it.
Yep. No, agreed. I'm just conscious of time, and we've got quite a few other questions. We're probably not going to get. We're not going to get to them all. But if you did send one in, we've got them banked, and we will definitely address them in future episodes. And there was one that came in around the sort of being in a room with other people and not feeling like you're actually part of that, which we addressed in another episode, but we'll go into it again, specifically the question in a future episode. There's a question here that I think we can get through is, do you watch or read less news in the last few years as it affects us so much? Since the pandemic, I look at the news a lot less as it stresses me out. I think I do. I don't know. I don't know if it aligns with the pandemic or if it's something else. But I genuinely, like, I used to be like all over the politics side of stuff and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just fucking bored of it. I try and filter all of it out because I've got so much going on in my life that the last thing I need is. You want to keep up with current affairs to a certain extent, but the news, like, I don't know if the news is worse than it was before, or if it's just there's more of it. Like, it just seems to be all the fucking time, and it's always negative.
And now we're like getting more news through like sort of social media and stuff like that as well, the internet, so it's like readily available. I never loved watching news, but I'd watch it definitely before, and like be a weird habit. I always watch like STV news, like the Scottish news at 6 o'clock, and then probably flip over to the BBC Scottish one as well, because you'd get a wee bit of like the main stuff that was happening. But that was like, I thought, I don't know if this has been selfish, just like this is what's on my doorstep, so I may as well know what it is. But I suppose, like, if you think back to COVID, when you watched it and it was just like, this is how many people have died. Do you know what I mean? Remember that? They'd have like, as if it's like the fucking football scores, you know what I mean? This is it, like, this is for the UK, we've lost like 147,000 folk, and that's like, and it's probably just come for that. I remember even before then, my routine would be getting up early, showered and all that, out the door, put on like Radio X in the morning, and it would be Toby Tarrant. So I think it was maybe before Chris Moyle started at 6:30, so Toby Tarrant would be at 6. And there was a spell, so by the time I was listening to it, it would be like the last song of the hour, then it'd be the news. And there was a spell and it was fucking horrific. And it was like the Ariana Grande bombing. And then there was like maybe terrorist attacks in London, and you could hear it in Toby Tarrant's voice. And he'd be like, and now we're going to London for the latest, like, on the terrorist attack. And that's the first thing you'd heard about. Like, and I was like, fucking hell, man, this is horrific. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of world are we living in? And that sort of put me off a bit. But I was like a bit numb to it. And I do feel out. I think with, like, I've said it before in like the group chat and that, it's hard. I think it hard to be political. And like, you watch the news and you just feel like less interested in like the people that would be trusted to like help us. I just wouldn't get political. I just think it's all bullshit, do you know what I mean? And it's just like, what's the point in watching it and just lie after lie after lie? So, and it is like, I'd rather just like watch The Simpsons for half an hour, or like Friends. Do you know what I mean? Disappear in that world and watch the world rip itself apart.
I think the cynic in me, right, thinks that the news has been like that to make folk feel like that, so they stop watching, they stop paying attention to what's going on, so folk can get away with what they've been getting away with, and things like that, right? And I know that's like sort of tinfoil hat territory, right? But I definitely watch less news than I used to, but it's because of, like, most of it I feel is pretty agenda driven, and I didn't really agree with it. I get frustrated by I don't trust the news that's there. But I think from the negative, like, so there's horrific stuff happens in the world, right? Horrific stuff, and there's only like it's like the tip of the iceberg that gets reported, like the really shit stuff that you see. So like the war in Ukraine, or when there's famine or murders, or like that, like horrific accidents, or like these things, you see them, like crimes that happen. And I think what you need to remember is you're only seeing that because they're the unusual things in life. Do you know what I mean? Like, a news bulletin when it's like, today Three Cunts made a podcast about mental health, and they chatted and had like a wholesome conversation about it, and they're left feeling better. Nobody wants to hear that story. Like, that's not going to make the 10 o'clock news. Or Ken, man cat rescues a cat out of a tree, or helps an old lady across the road, or all the infinite numbers of acts of kindness that go on in the world. They're no reportable because they're no unusual. But that's the reality. What you see in the news is the bits that's like unusual, that are astonishing or extraordinary. And they might not be extraordinary for a good reason, and they're reportable because they have like a big impact or whatever. But those are the exceptional events that are reportable. The stuff day to day that isn't newsworthy, that's what you just need to remember, like, and have that wee sense of perspective on it. Because if you think the news is all that's happening in the world, then it would eat you up, and you would just think, what a horrible place we live in, and what's the point? You just need to remember there's loads of good shit happens outside your door every single day. Folk have nice conversations, help each other out, give each other hugs, all the rest of it. You just didn't see it because it's not as newsworthy as, Tory bastards fucking being Tory bastards.
That is it. I think it's newsworthy, and the reason is, so I'm kind of aligned with you, Matty, around the way the news is, or the type of news that's put out there, and how it's kind of geared towards distracting you to a certain extent, right? Especially now, it's worse than it ever was. And there's definitely an element of that.
Yeah.
But I also think, in Black Mirror, like, I've touched on this quite a few times, and there was an episode in the latest season, and if I'm like, it's no long out, so I'm not going to put any spoilers, but there was a whole one around a Netflix well, it wasn't Netflix, but it was a documentary on a streaming platform around murders. And it was one that was actually set in Scotland. And I think the underlying premise of that was that, like, that's what people wanted to see. That's what they wanted to watch. They want to see the bad shit. People, and fuck knows why. I don't know if it's just the way we are in society now, but they all, like, these news groups and television companies and stuff, they all have shitloads of data, right, on people, like shitloads, and they have profiles and everything, and they'll have engagement scores and all this, and they'll have a really good idea of what people want to consume. And you can pretty much guarantee, based on what they're actually putting out there, is that people want to consume grim, horrendous fucking news, right? They want bad news, and they respond the best. Well, maybe they want bad news, but they respond the best to bad news. And Black Mirror, like, they Charlie Brooker, like, he sort of nails that, and there's quite a few over the seasons of Black Mirror around that, and it's just so true that they will exploit anything they can to get that news out there, and people will just lap it up regardless of how horrendous it is. That's why Netflix in real life has went the way it has. Like, I cancelled it ages ago because it is just all fucking murder documentaries. And it's still one of the biggest streaming, if not the biggest streaming platform in the world, because people love it. People love all that shit. That what's his name? The guy that was in Kick-Ass and he was Quicksilver. He did he wasn't Ted Bundy, but it was that famous murderer.
Was that not
It was on Netflix.
Jeffrey Dahmer one?
Yeah, the Dahmer one. Like, that was
It
massive.
Was Evan Peters? Was it
Evan Peters? That's it. Yeah, it was absolutely massive, and people just, and like, I tried to watch it, and I was like, this is absolutely horrendous. And you started seeing the news stories about the families of the victims and everything, this dragging up for them, and nobody gives a shit. It just Netflix just cared about making money, and they try to spin it all which way they want about, it's to, like, like, bring light to how bad he was, and
honor the victims, and
all of
their story.
Like, shite. No, he just wanted to make money, and you see an opportunity to make money, and it did. So I think there's an element of the news is just giving the people what they want, unfortunately, as much as we want to blame them. And I think they are to blame for a lot of stuff, but I think unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. And on that, really cheery. No,
I'm away watching news.
To wrap up, I'm away to watch a murder documentary. No, I certainly am there. I fucking hate them. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be back soon with another episode, and we'll get through those other questions and points that were sent in. And thank you very much to the people who did send them in, because they were really, really good thought-provoking points.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Isn't that just the way? What's that you say?